All right. So we have the link into the chat for our attendance, and I see it's not coming up as a link. Sorry about that. There is the link that you can be able to just click right through. Awesome. All right. And if you could just take a minute to write in the chat who you are, where you are. We're going to ask some questions about your background with CodeHS and with the AP Computer Science A course in just a bit. But we just want to see, we have a lot of people here. We want to know where you guys are here from. Awesome, West Virginia. I'm right in Virginia, so we're pretty close. Florida, New Jersey, Poland. Well, awesome. Wow, all over. This is one of my favorite things about these workshops. We have so many teachers teaching the same content, but all around the country and the world. We can see lots of other countries here. Awesome. All right. So we have lots more people still joining us, but we're going to get started today so that we can make sure to get through all of our information that we have to give you. So my name is Julia Trigo, and I am working this summer with CodeHS as a PD specialist, running these free workshops on our curriculum. I used to work for CodeHS on the curriculum development team, but I went back to the classroom this school year. So I'm actually back teaching during the year at a high school in Virginia. But I am so excited to be here working with the CodeHS team and with teachers all across the world to tell them about our resources and our courses that we have at CodeHS. And you're going to get to hear from a bunch of different people on our team today. First, you're going to hear from David Burnham, who is our curriculum developer who's working on our AP Computer Science A course. And he has taught this course in the classroom before. So he has a lot of really awesome info to give you, and he's going to go through some sample lessons in the course and tell you about all of those resources that we have there that you can use with your students. We also have Joni Neer here with us, and she is a PD specialist who has just finished teaching the Computer Science A course with her students. She has been teaching this course for many years and has a lot of really awesome tips and resources for you as well. So we're going to get to hear from her a little bit later. And we also have Ebony Davis with us, who is going to be answering all of your questions as we ask them. As you have different things you're looking for resources, she's going to be the one to give you all that info that you need. So how are we actually going to get those questions asked today? We have a lot of people here, and the chat is very easy to kind of blow up, and we don't want to miss anything. So if you could open this question parking lot document on the side, awesome. The link is right in the chat. Thank you, Ebony. If you can put your questions on this document, we can make sure that every single one of them gets answered as we go through our workshop today. This is a really, really good spot for you to get information with links and articles and help notes that we can give you links for directly. And you can also look through this document. Maybe you don't think you have any questions and you go and look at the question parking lot and someone else asks something that you're interested in as well. So make sure you have that document up. We also have a really, really helpful resource for you as we go through today's workshop. So we have a workbook for this session, which has so many links. It has a lot of different information there, so you can stay on track as we go through a lot of different resources and information today. And this is also going to be a really helpful thing for you to revisit after our workshop in a few weeks when you're ready to actually dive in and start planning for next school year. So make sure you have this workbook up and ready to use as we go through our session today. All right. If you need to create an account on CodeHS, you can do that right now. If you go to codehs.com/sign up, you If you already have an account, you're all set. We are going to use that today as we go through material. So you can just log in there and be ready with that. Or if you want to sit back and watch and then get an account after our session, that is totally fine as well. But if you are ready to get that, you can go right to that link, and that's in the chat right now. And I know we're inundating you with links, but our last link real quick is going to be for our demo course that we are going to use throughout our session today. So Dave is going to go through some content in our CSA course, and he's going to have you look through some of that curriculum as a student. So this is a really great way for you to be able to access all of that content that you need as we are going through the lessons today. So the code and the link are in the chat right now. You're just going to go to that link, and then it will ask you for a code. This is the same way your students join a course on CodeHS. So enter that code in, and you should be enrolled in our demo section for today. And that information is also available on your workbook and also at the top of the question parking lot. So lots of ways to get those links if you missed them. All right, let's jump in and see what we're going to cover, because we have a lot to do in our 2-hour session today. So we did a quick check-in and intros, enrolling in our demo section. If you still need to do that, there's links in the chat, or those links are in your workbook or your parking lot. And we're going to hop in just a second. Dave is going to give us an overview of the course that we have on CodeHS, the AP Computer Science A course, tell you what's in there and how it works. Then he's going to go through a sample lesson in the course, and we're going to go through and debrief the choices that he made. So a really important thing to note as we go through our session today is that the content in the AP-CSA course, you will still need to go through that if this is totally new to you. If you have never taught this course before, or you haven't used Java before, this 2-hour workshop isn't going to be a boot camp to get you to learn the actual content that's in the course. More, what we want you to focus on is seeing the content from a student perspective. How are your students going to engage in this content, and how are you going to make sure that they are understanding what is being presented to them? You also want to pay attention to the teacher moves that Dave is doing as he goes through those lessons. So how is he using the resources and the tools on CodeHS to actually make the lessons engaging and understandable for you as the student? So if he starts asking questions in Java and you are just like, I've never looked at Java before, don't worry. The goal is not the content. The goal is the teacher moves and the tips that you can learn about how to use those in your classroom. All right. And then after our break, we are going to look at some specific tools that we have on CodeHS specifically for this AP-CSA course, and also some tools that we have in general that will help you teach your course with CodeHS. All right, so my last reminder before we hop in to our course overview is that parking lot is a great spot. Ask your questions whenever you have them. You don't have to wait until the end, and we will be answering those on the parking lot in real time. All right, so take it away, Dave.
All right, thanks, Julia. Before we get started, I just want to go through a couple quick questions about how familiar you are with the course and with CodeHS. So we're going to answer some questions on Slido. You can use your phone to take a picture of the QR link, or you can go to slido.com and fill in survey 41569. And once you do that, just go ahead and answer this first question. So what is your experience with CodeHS? Not used it before, limited use, 1 to 2 years, or 3 or more years? All right, so it looks like a lot of people are first-time users or just trying to get a sense of it, which is good, or have had limited use. So hopefully we'll be able to cover quite a bit for you. I know if you're a first-time user as well, then you may also find we have some new user courses that might help as well. Let's see, so give this one another few seconds here. All right, our next question. So what's your experience with the AP CSA curriculum, not specifically with CodeHS? Have you ever taught it before? You taught it once or twice? You taught it once or twice, but not recently because the curriculum did change, or have you taught it quite a bit? All right, so a lot of first-time CSA teachers, so I'll make sure we're kind of covering some of that content as we go through here. The CSA curriculum is a little bit daunting at first, but there's quite a few resources that you have available, and you can kind of go through the course and learn as you go. And then so final question, oops, sorry. Oops, going back the wrong way. So final question, no, Nitro or Mocha, or you have no idea what I'm talking about? All right, so it looks like a lot of people are on Nitro, a few people on Mocha, and some people are not sure yet what I'm talking about. And that's okay, because we're going to jump right into that as we go. In today's class, we're going to focus mostly on Nitro. We're going to talk a little bit about Mocha. Those are our two different AP courses that we have options with. Nitro does seem to be a little bit more popular. I think the first year we offered it, it was about 50-50 split, but it seems to be gaining more momentum now and seems to be more popular. Okay, before we get into that, let me talk a little bit about courses on CodeHS. So courses are broken down into modules. And so each module, so main content modules cover the basic content of the course. In Nitro, these modules correspond one-to-one with the College Board units. So you'll see 10 units in Nitro and you'll see 10 units in the College Board curriculum and the College Board syllabus. We also have supplemental modules, and the supplemental modules contain additional practice, such as labs and other material. Modules are then broken down into lessons. So lessons generally take 1 to 2 class periods to complete, and each module contains a summative test at the end of the modules. Then when you get into each lesson, lessons are broken down into particular activities. So typically a lesson starts with a video and then a quiz that checks for understanding. So it's a relatively basic quiz, just really to check to see if the students watched the video. And then from there, you usually see 2 to 3 examples and 2 to 3 auto-graded exercises for the students to work on. So let's take a closer look at the modules in Nitro. As I previously mentioned, our modules follow the same order as College Board. With this in mind, you'll notice that we dive into objects early on in Module 2 after covering primitive variables. This would definitely challenge the students early in the course. From there, students cover some of the basic computer science concepts such as conditional statements and loops. We then head back into classes and objects as students will now start to create their own classes. We then next tackle arrays and array lists. Before finally concluding with our 2D arrays, inheritance, and recursion. In addition to our main concept modules, you'll also find additional material in our supplemental modules, including several of the College Board labs. We've included most of the new labs that were released in 2019, as well as some of the previous College Board labs, but there are a few that we do not have in the system just yet. So now in contrast, our MOCA course was our original APCSA course, and it was created based on the curriculum prior to 2019. With that said, there's a few noticeable differences, and you'll see a few of these differences as we work through our sample lessons. First, you'll find lessons that cover both abstract classes and interfaces, which are no longer in scope. Additionally, there are several topics now in scope that were not fully covered in the original course. These have been added into the course, so you'll still find them in there, but they are kind of added on to the original content. Another big difference is that MOCA simplifies the way that programs run and how it handles input from the user. Neither of these concepts are tested as part of the College Board curriculum, so we've modified the way students implement these in MOCA and make it a little bit easier for them. So in order for the order of the modules is also different, and it does not follow the order from College Board. Because of this, we have not submitted this curriculum or this particular course to College Board for endorsement. So while Nitro is an endorsed course from College Board, MOCA is actually not an endorsed course, but it does cover 100% of the content that is on the test. All right, in a second, we're going to take a look at two sample lessons for today. So one each from our Nitro and one from our MOCA course. As we go through these, I'm going to try to hit all parts of the lesson, but keep in mind that I'm not going to always give you enough time to complete the tasks because we're in a PD format with limited time. We'll also look at a variety of different ways to present the material in a remote setting, but keep in mind that this PD has a large number of participants, and there are times when I would probably ask for student input, but will not, given the format that we have in this PD with the large numbers. I also wanted to mention that everything we do today can be done with either free or pro access. You'll see some discussion questions and other resources used in the lesson plan, used from lesson plans. These questions are available in our lesson plans, which is a pro feature, but as a free teacher, you can always generate similar content. So as we go through the lessons today, there's going to be parts of the lesson we do together in class, parts that we'll do in small groups, and then there will be parts that you'll complete on your own. So let's go ahead and get started with our first lesson. So the first lesson that we're going to look at is Nitro 1.5, which is user input. So we are skipping ahead a little bit in the course. If you're not familiar with the course or with some of the early stuff in Java, you may have a little bit of a catch up here, but it's early on in the course, so you should hopefully be able to follow along. So far in the course, the students would have learned how to print out information and how to manipulate some variables, but that's really all they've done so far. This lesson is going to start to look at how we get user input from the user. And again, this is one of those lessons that is different between Nitro and MOCA. In MOCA, we simplify user input. You're going to see, we're going to talk a little bit about the scanner and some of the intricacies of that, which are a little bit more challenging for students. All right, so before we get started, I want to throw out a question to answer in chat. So interacting with computers and programs can make them more interesting. So think about some of the devices you use each day. What are some of the ways you interact with these devices or computers each day? So go ahead and throw some ideas in the chat. So again, what are some ways that you interact with devices and computers on a daily basis? Yeah, so lots of different ways between, connecting with others, doing business, connecting, getting places, doing some of the routine things that we do. And some of the other ones that I thought were interesting, microwave, vending machines, things like that as well, that, we're interacting with what used to be relatively simple things and are now relatively complex. So think about this question. So think about the programs that we use each day that request user input. What data is needed and how is it used? So if you want to answer this one, you can either throw your answer in chat, or if you want to speak, you can raise your hand and we can call on you. Either way is fine. I know sometimes people do not want to necessarily talk in a big group. So throw it in chat or raise your hand and we can call on you. So yes, we have lots of different data. So, again, we have passwords that we're entering. We have information that we need to go to on web browsers to find things. And a lot of that information, we need a way to get it into our computers. So as we start to create our programs, we're going to start to think about more interactive programs that are actually taking information in and reading it back out. So today's lesson is really going to kind of focus on that idea of how do we get information in user input. So we're going to start by looking at getting that information in Java and using it, getting information from the console. So far, we've been writing information out to the console. Now we're going to start to look at reading information in. And just give me a second here. I'm going to switch up my presentation. All right, so I'm going now over to the slides that we have for the lesson. Instead of watching the video for this lesson, I'm going to present the slides myself. Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to take a look at scanners, user input, and how we use that along with next line, next int, and next double. Okay, so user input is an important aspect of computer science. It creates interaction with programs and with users. And so in this lesson, we're going to learn how to get that user input into our programs and so that we can start to look at analyzing it later. So the basic skeleton that we're going to use uses the scanner object. And so the scanner object is something that we see in Java, but it's not something that is actually used all the time. And so we have to actually use a separate import statement when we bring it in. So it's part of the Java util package, and we can take this, and we're going to learn a little bit more about how we use classes in the next unit, but we pull this class in, and once we pull that class in, it allows us to use that object. So we're going to go ahead, pull that class in our first line, and this is a little bit different than what we've seen so far. But once we pull that in, we can now create and initialize our scanner. So this line here creates and initializes a scanner, which we're going to then use to input our text. So let's take a closer look at that line. So the first part here is the call to the scanner at the beginning of this line, and actually is the data type. So the data type that we're using is a scanner data type. So it's its own data type, and it's defined in the scanner class. We then give it a variable name. So we typically will use the variable name input, but you can really call it anything you want. Sometimes it's called input, sometimes it's called scan, whatever you want to call it, but you have to just be consistent with this name and how we use it later. We then use the new keyword to create a new object. And again, we're creating a new scanner object. So we say new scanner. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pass it a parameter. And we'll learn a little bit more about parameters later. But for now, notice that we're passing it a parameter called system.in. Just like we use system.out to write to our console, we use system.in to read in from our console. So our system.in is the value that typically corresponds to keyboard input, and it including this allows us to input data from our keyboard into our program. So now notice how we get this set up going here. We use our scanner input, and we create a variable called input using that scanner object. We then use that variable name whenever we want to bring input in. And we have three different lines that we're going to really focus on bringing in here. We have what's called next line, next int, and next double. Next line actually brings in the entire next line that I've read and reads it in as a string. You'll notice that the name here is cast to a string variable, and that is reading the next line, and next line gets stored as a string. Next int, like the name suggests, gets stored as an integer, and next double gets stored as a double. Now I have to be careful because if I say next line, I'm bringing in a string, if I don't match, or if I don't have the name, it doesn't actually know what to do. So I need to make sure I'm including that name, but I also need to make sure that I'm matching it up. So next int cannot be read into a string, just like next line can't be read into an integer. So whatever this part here on the right has, it has to correspond to the same input on the left. Okay, so take a look here at this in action. So you see an example here of how you might run a program using the input. The first line of code follows following the creation of the scanner is the system.out line, and it asks the user to state their name. The following line is a call to the scanner asking for a next line or a string input value. The user then types their name and hits enter. Upon hitting enter, the value Carol is being stored in the variable name, and the next line of code runs, which asks the user to state their age. This is followed by a call again to the scanner asking for the next int or an integer value. And the user is prompted to enter the integer value, which is stored in the variable age. Line 11 and 12 simply print out the values of name and age, as well as the string name and age followed by a plus sign. Okay. Now, one thing to note is that the next int and next double actually only take a portion of the line. They'll take what's called a token, and they'll leave the rest of the line behind. And if you call a next line after you call a next int, it's actually going to read the portion of the line that was left behind and not ask the user for an additional input. So for example, next int, if I ask them to enter their age, next int reads that 13, but leaves behind a portion of that line for that next line to read as it comes. And so it's not going to actually ask you for your name because it has read it in from the rest of that line. Even though there was nothing else on the line that we could see, there was something that the computer could see, which was just basically the carriage return or the enter key being pressed. So if we look at this here, here's a run through the issue. So if you notice that after the age is input into the program, the user isn't able to add their name to the program. This is because the next line is taking the value that follows the number 15. When we try to print the name, the value is actually blank. So to fix this, we need to add a buffer, a next line buffer. So we can essentially have that buffer next line statement that absorbs the value of the blank space following the number input. Then we can make another next line call to which we can receive as the user input. So if we look at this example, we have it now fixed where we have that line 10 that inputs that next line, clears that buffer, and now will allow the user to ask their name. All right, so this problem that we see, so to clear the buffer, you need to call full line method and assign it a value to the variable, or without assigning it to a value to a variable. So we call it after a next int or a next double. You don't necessarily need to call it after a next line. Okay. So now it's your turn. So let me switch back here. Okay, what I want you guys to do now is take a few minutes to complete the user input quiz. When you are done with the quiz, you want to go back to the participation tab and raise your hand so that I know that you're done. So again, there's a couple ways that you can do that. You'll see under the reactions, you'll have an option to raise hand, and go ahead and do that so that I know you're done and we'll move on. But take about 2 or 3 minutes to finish the quiz. Again, you'll find the link to the quiz in the workbook, and you can go from there. All right, so again, remember, raise your hand if you can. What we found is the other reactions like thumbs up, things like that actually disappear in 30 seconds. So we don't necessarily, we have a harder time tracking that. but when you go through, raise your hand. Again, just as you're going through this, I'll give you a little bit of commentary. So our check for understanding quizzes are generally pretty straightforward and easy. We're just really kind of checking to make sure that students watch the video. I'm not really trying to test them too hard in these quizzes here. You'll find the questions at the end of the units a little bit more challenging. All right, as you guys finish up, I'm gonna start to talk about our next activity here. So in a second, we're going to break out into small groups and have you work through the examples in small groups. So again, different strategies that you can use here, but we're going to have you work through the examples with some of your peers. And as you do that, there's a bunch of questions that we want you to look through. So you're going to find these questions right here, but you're going to also find them in the workbook. So as you do the increase decrease example, run it a few times and see what happens if you enter a negative number and what happens if you enter a decimal or a string. Then explore the int before string example. So run the program, see what happens, and see if you can actually fix it. Okay. So again, go ahead and work through these examples in your groups. We're going to break you out into breakout groups in a second here, and then you're going to find these questions again in the CSA workbook. You're going to also find a link to these exercises there as well, but they will be the actual next exercises after your quiz. So Julia, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and break out into the breakout rooms.
All right. Yeah, and so just a reminder, all of that workbook is really going to be helpful. So if you came in a little bit late, if someone could just drop that workbook link in one more time so that we can make sure we have, everyone has that so that they have access to all of that info. Awesome. All right. Okay, I am going to open our breakout rooms now. You're going to get a pop-up, and so you'll just have to click join to head into your room, and I'll broadcast a message when we're coming back. All right, here we go.
All right, so welcome back. So now that you've looked through some of the examples, it's time to do some of the exercises. We're going to just give you a little bit of time to play around with this. So in class, what I want you to do is take about 3 or 4 minutes to work on the My Age exercise. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of give you a starting point. So you'll notice that the starter code here already handles the import statement on line 1. It also creates a scanner object on line 9, so we don't have to do that. To get our input, we really need 2 lines of code. First, we need a line to tell the user what information they're going to ask for. We'll do this with a standard system.out.println statement. Second, we need to create our own new variable as an integer and read that value in. If you're having trouble with this exercise, go back to the increase decrease by 1 example. And when you finish with this exercise, feel free to move on to the next one. But I'm going to give you about 3 or 4 minutes to finish this, and it may not be enough time for you to do that now, and students would probably definitely need more time. But take a few minutes just to kind of play around with this example, and then we'll come back. Again, you're just going to work on this one on your own. Okay, so go ahead and finish up, and we're going to come back to our presentation. All right, so again, not enough time to really finish everything in this lesson, but wanted to give you a sense of the flow of one of our lessons. So a couple of things that we can look at for alteration. So if you wanted to present a lesson this way, you can. It's a little bit different than maybe our traditional way of presenting lessons in CodeHS. So one way that you can alter it is have the students watch the video, or you can watch it either in class or flipped. You have them watch it at home beforehand. Another thing I often will use is having students watch the video all together in class and then discuss it before you move on. You'll find that some students work faster than others. A lot of times what I would do is I would let some students work ahead, but I would have certain stopping spots where I want all the students to kind of start at the same point. So maybe lesson 1, we do the video together, and then maybe lesson 2, they're doing it on their own, and then back together at lesson 3. So the examples in this one, we went through and gave you guys questions to work through as a small group, but you can also have students go through individually. You can have them explore a worksheet to help answer some of those questions. You can also start with a blank editor and write examples out together, and I'm going to give you a little bit of an example of that in our next lesson. Okay, as an exit ticket to this lesson, so want to have you fill out this Padlet. So again, go to this link here. You'll find the link in the workbook, and we also have it posted in chat, or you can use your scanner here. And really just what are some ideas that you have in the classroom? So what routines do you currently use in your classroom that could be used in a CodeHS classroom? So take a second to share with your colleagues, and this will be available after class as well if you want to come back to some of these ideas. So again, what routines do you use in your classroom that could be used in a CodeHS classroom? All right, so go ahead and continue sharing there. I'm going to start to introduce our next lesson. So our next lesson is from our MOCA course. This is going to be lesson 3.2. Now you'll notice it's actually part of our summer PD because using assignments, you can actually bring in pieces of other courses into your course that you create. And I think Julie is going to go through some of that later as she walks through some teacher tools. But you can bring in different pieces, and that's what I've done here. So you'll see this lesson in our summer PD, which is mostly a Nitro course, but we bring that extra lesson in. So now, so far in the course, students would have written programs that allow them to print information. Some of this is, they've done some manipulation of variables and things like that. And now we're starting to look at using functions and using methods in Java to input information. So lesson 3.1 introduces them to methods in general. And now we're going to start to look at methods with parameters. So previously we looked at some methods in Java. So what are some of the benefits of methods? So take a second to fill out this fast poll. It has just some basic ideas here. So what are some of the benefits of methods? So you can only select one, but take just a second to select the one you might think is most beneficial. Okay, and so really a lot of different ideas of what could be beneficial for our methods. And so allowing code to be reused is a big benefit from it. It abstracts away details. It also does make our programs easier to understand. It can make our programs shorter, usually not necessarily a popular choice, but it is an option. Sometimes it makes them shorter. Sometimes it doesn't actually make them shorter. All right, let's go back here. All right, I'm going to skip this part now, just in the interest of time. I'd have you watch the part of the video on your own. The video is a little bit longer here than, it's about a 4-minute video, but this is, watching the first 3 minutes would give you some good background. But we're going to skip that, and instead I'm going to walk through a demo exercise here. And so I'm going to, again, walk through the demo in person versus having you just walk through it. One of the things I find is that students tend to go pretty quickly through demos, and helping slow them down, or the examples rather, helps a little bit. So again, we're looking now at how we use parameters in our programs. So if we don't have parameters and I want to add 2 numbers together, I'd have to create a formula or function or a method for each one of those. So if I want to add 2's together, I make a sum 2's. And 4, I have to make the same exact thing, just changing the numbers. So one of the things we can do is we can actually pass it parameters. And a parameter is essentially an input into my function that I pass it from my main calling line. And so I'm going to define 2 variables here. I'm going to call it num1 and num2. And when I do that, I now can pass the value from here to that function or to that method. So if I want to add 2 and 2, I can pass 2 and 2, and that will print out the total if I just use these variables here. Now notice when I declare the variable up here, I have access to it here. I don't have to redeclare it down here. And now I have that value there. And so I now no longer need this second function or the second method, because I can call the sum of 4's by just adding 2 numbers up there. And so I can call this method as many times as I want with as many different numbers as I want. And I can pass it these values without having to specify which values are actually used in there. So again, these are passed. They're called parameters, and the parameters that it takes are sent into the function. And then we pass them in, can use them in our function and print out the total. So now again, I'm printing 2 plus 2, 4 plus 4, and 3 plus 5. So by doing this, I can make my code a little bit more efficient and a little bit easier to read and understand, and a lot less repetitive. Okay. Next, I'd take time for you to work through some of these exercises on your own. But again, we're going to skip this part. And what I want you to do is we're actually going to do a collaboration exercise. If you're not familiar with the CodeHS collaboration, it's a pretty cool feature that allows students to work together on the same piece of code. So what we're going to do in a second is we're going to break you down or break you up into small groups. And in those groups, you're going to find a link in the workbook to this codehs.com/repeating. And it's basically this repeating message exercise in a sandbox format. So the instructions for the exercise are there. And what you're going to do is you're going to find your link to your group here. You're going to follow that link. So if you're in breakout group 1, you're going to follow the link to breakout group 1. And then everybody in your group is going to be able to work on that problem together, and you can talk and work through the problem as you go through. So again, you have your different breakout groups depending on your breakout room. So find the link for your breakout room, and then take some time to work through this problem as a team, and code it together as a team using the CodeHS collaboration in our sandbox. So again, you find this link,
All right.
codehs.com/repeating, and you can go from there.
Yep, so that link is in your workbook. It is also in your chat right now. And I'm going to open our breakout rooms. Again, you're going to have to join the pop-up And if you have any issues with your Collaborate links, just let us know in the chat. All right, here we go.
All right, so welcome back. So just a couple questions. A couple people had questions on Collaborate. Yeah, I have not used the collaboration on Ripple. I think it's similar. One thing to note though is the collaboration right now is just available in the sandbox. I believe they're working on making it available on exercises, but for now it's just a sandbox exercise. So you notice what I did was I actually copied and pasted the instructions into the comments there, and then I just made copies of the exercise so students could kind of work on that exercise that way. And it is something that's free and goes that way. The fork button on collaboration, I believe you could make a copy of the program. It just wouldn't be shared if you did fork it from that point. But when you fork it, I don't think you're going to necessarily be sharing it with anybody. You have your own version of that. So yeah, they could move to that alone if they wanted to after they kind of worked on it together. But yeah, that is, it's definitely a good tool to use, especially if you have students that are still virtual next year. But let's go ahead and wrap up this lesson. So lesson 2, what was different? So first we were using Mocha, which is slightly different user interface on the Nitro. So you'll see that Mocha uses a run method to kick things off, whereas Nitro uses the main method, which is more traditional for Java. Again, it's a little bit, the run method's a little bit cleaner than the main method, where students just really don't need to know what all the aspects of the main method are. And also the biggest difference is when it comes to user input, they're just using a very simple line for user input in Mocha. You notice that we saw some intricacies in Nitro with that scanner. Students don't have to deal with that in Mocha. But that said, Mocha is our older course. Nitro is a little bit more popular. If I was choosing in the classroom, I would probably choose Nitro just because I think there's a little bit more rigor to it. You notice we also had you watch, or I would have had you watch a portion of the video on your own. We didn't have time to do that. But again, giving you a chance to watch a piece of it. You don't necessarily always have to have students watch all of it. The part that they wouldn't have watched is the demo that I did in person. So I did a live coding for the example. Instead of really having the video do that live coding, just have you watch through the portion of the slide presentation. And then we did the collaboration on the programming exercise from there. Just in the interest of time, I'm not going to have you do this in a small groups, but go ahead and throw some ideas in chat. So what are some of the routines that you do in your classroom that we've used or that you've seen, now that we've seen 2 lessons, we talked a little bit about this after the first lesson, but what are some ideas now that you can do that? So just take about a minute for that. Yeah, and collaboration is available for free. That's not a paid feature. So one thing to note, just as you're finishing this up, and we're going to take a break in a second here. When I've talked with CodeHS in the classroom, there is a lot of routine with going through, watching a video, going through the examples, doing the exercises. It's nice to break things up. And so trying to find ways to do things a little bit differently. Like I said, having students work through an example in a workbook or a worksheet rather. You do in pair program for examples. Things like that help to kind of break up some of the routine, because a lot of our lessons, they follow that same pattern, but you can kind of break the routine, do things a little bit differently. All right, so we're going to take about a 5-minute break here. I have about 6 minutes past the hour, so let's come back at 11 minutes past the hour, and Joni's going to get started with some additional resources that we have available for you in the classroom. So go ahead and take about a 5-minute break, and we'll see you on the other side of that break.
All right, everyone. Thank you for working through those lessons with us and taking a look at our curriculum. Now we're going to flip over and see past the curriculum, what other resources do we have for this course? So we're going to have Joni Neer take it away.
Hey everyone. Hey, it's so good to be here with you guys. I see that we've got so many people here, so many different levels. Some of you guys who have already taught APCSA have used CodeHS. You guys are going to really find these resources that are kind of that above and beyond type of stuff going to be really helpful to you. Those of you who are new, one of the things that I'm going to show you from the very beginning is going to be helpful, because when you're in a classroom, if you have not taught this in the classroom yet, you're going to notice that there are kids all over the place. And sometimes it gets really hard to manage. So these resources are great resources to help those struggling kids. They're great resources to help the kids just get more practice. If you've got kids who get done early, you can put them on something that's going to be a little bit more challenging for them. So a lot of these resources are going to be helpful across the board. So I'm going to go over a few of the resources that CodeHS actually provides to you. Then we're going to touch base with a few resources that the College Board has to offer, so that you know that those are available to you. And then kind of wrap up with Julia then going over the teacher resources or the teacher tools that are actually inside of CodeHS. So the very first one that I want to bring to your attention is the CodeHS practices. These, if you have, I saw that some of you guys have taught previously. You may have been out of APCSA for a year or two. Maybe you've had CodeHS before, but something that's relatively new, they added this, we've added this last year, was the CodeHS practices. And what this has is it has over 100 short practice problems, and they're set up like our unit test. And I think what it's best if I just go into it and show you what that looks like. And so when you find the practices, you're actually going to come up to the very top of your CodeHS page, your landing page here. And at the top, you see this practice button. That's where you're going to get to all the practices. Now, when you click that button, it's going to take you to a page that looks like this. The first thing that I want to do is draw your attention to the right-hand side of the screen. On the right-hand side, you're going to see that we actually have practice problems for Java, JavaScript, Python, C++, and SQL. So you'll get to choose which one of these languages that you actually want to have the kids have the practices on. Now, obviously for APCSA, it's Java, but you'll run into kids who are saying, hey, I'm learning Python on my own, or I'm learning JavaScript on my own. And those are the kids that are probably going to get done with the exercises kind of early. So you can even put them onto different practices using different languages too. So we're going to stick in here with Java because that's the one we're doing. You're also going to notice that there is just a long list of practice problems. We have them categorized in the type of practice that it specifies. If you're working with strings or objects, let's say that they're having troubles with array list, or you're on array list and you have students who are done early. So you can find the array list practices. They can work on these on their own, or you can actually assign them. You're also going to see that there's the dots that you see in all of the CodeHS platform all the way through. So you're going to be able to tell by looking at the kids' practice problems page, oh, it looks like that you didn't get that square a double type because it's yellow. Why don't you go back to that and give that another try? So you can kind of follow along on what they are actually doing. I want to take you through what one of the practice problems look like. And so if I would select area of a circle, I'm going to go ahead and click on this. I erased all my answers, even though it shows it as green, because I had messed with it, was playing around with it a little bit. And it's just to show that it actually can have it has the green dot when it's done. So I'm going to go ahead and click on area of a circle, and it's going to take me to an exercise that looks like this. Now, when we say that it looks like a unit test, all the unit tests are kind of set up this way. We're actually going to be creating a method, and the method is really the only thing that is getting graded and submitted. But to be able to test it, the students have to be able to run this method themselves. So over on the left-hand side, we do have the scratch pad so that we can run a test of it and we can see if we did it correct as the student, and then we'll bring it back over to the unit test and we can submit it, run it and submit it and check it there. So this one is that we're looking for the area. And over on the assignment tab on the right-hand side, it tells us to write a method that returns the area of a circle given the radius. And it also specifies that we have to use the math.py method. So I'm going to go ahead and come in here and I'm going to program this. And I don't have to do anything except return. And what is it that I need to return? I need to return math.py. So that's pi r squared. So math.pow. And we want the radius to the second, and that should do it. Okay, now if I try to run this code, it's not going to do anything, because when I try to come back and run the code to check it, I'm actually going to be to check it myself, I'm actually going to be running the scratch pad and it doesn't have anything in it yet. So this is where you can add your own test here, and it has you copy and paste your unit test method down here. So I'm going to come ahead and I'm going to just copy this and I'm going to put it back underneath here, get my stuff right here. And so now I need to run my own test, so I can say, let's print out the get area and let's send 5 to it because it's nope, it's expecting a double, so I better check a double. All right, so let's give it a try. We're going to run the scratch pad, see if it works, see if I get the area. I get something. Don't know if it's right or not because I'm a student and I don't know what the area of a radius of 5 is. So I'm going to go ahead and check it and let's see if it comes out. I get all the green. So that's how it's going to work. And when I submit it, when I come back to it, it's actually going to have the green dot that says that I have submitted that. Okay, so that's our practice. Sorry about that. That is our practice resource that we have for you. The next resource that we have for you is the AP Computer Science FRQ Center. Now, your FRQs are your free response questions. And what we have done is we've actually gone back to the College Board AP test from 2013, you can see that here, all the way through 2019. These are all the tests that are available to anyone. So anybody has access to these to practice, to see what they're like. And so what we've done is we've taken all these and we've put it into our free response question center. Now, to get to this, we have to go to Toolbox. And on our toolbox, we've got in resources, yep, right here, APCSA, FRQ Center. So it's part of our resources that's in our toolbox, and that will take you then to this page. Now, let me just go through what each one of these are so that you have an idea. These are 2 resources are, to me, like awesome resources to be able to use at any point in time. So I want to make sure that you understand these. So what we have here is, let's say that we're looking at, let's see, which one did I actually choose? Yep, 2013. We've got different options that we can have here. First is just the actual PDF. This is exactly what the kids got in 2013. This was the test that was handed to them, and it is specifically the exact same one. And so that's in PDF format so that you can work with it however you want. We also have added the scoring guide. The scoring guide, again, is information that the AP kids have access to see what the scoring is like. And what this is literally exactly how the tests are going to get graded. So a student can use this scoring guideline, and you can use the scoring guideline and even work in tandem with the kids to say, okay, here's what you did. Let's go back and see how many points you would have gotten based on this information. So those are the 2 things that are available here with the PDFs of the scoring guide and the questions themselves. Now we have also a couple of different options where we can actually get in to our online platform that the kids can do some coding. And so you've got a couple of different options here. So if you want them to try it, we can either look at the whole thing, because there's usually multiple parts. You can see A, B, there's also sometimes part C. And so you can pick those out individually to have the students do, or you can say, we're going to look at the whole thing. You have two different options, text only versus runnable. So let's look at the text only. The text only, let's see if I've got one open here. It doesn't look like I have one open. Let me see if I can get one open. Text only. Okay, so here's what the text, I guess it was the text only one that I had. So here's the text only. Basically what this does is it does not have all the methods implemented. You can't run this. Notice how we don't have a run up here? You can't run this because it is the text only. So it says that, oh, hop distance, it actually does what it tells you that it does, but you don't need to see how it's done. So this is what the kids are going to see on the test. They're going to go, what the heck, implementation not shown. You need to make sure that you tell them, hey, they don't have to have that. You don't have to worry about that. It'll just run. If you use hop distance, it'll just run. Down at the bottom then, or wherever it is that you have to add information in, that's where what you're going to have to do. So if it says implement this, that means that that's what the kids actually have to do on the test. Now, why would you want this one where you can't code it inside of here and run it? Well, the reason is because when they take the AP test, they aren't going to have a program to be able to actually run the code on. So what they have to do is they literally have to write it. So this simulates writing it, only they're typing. And so in my opinion, you need to probably have them do both. It's okay to have them type in here, but also at times literally have them write, because writing code and typing code, even though you're not running it, still feels a lot different. So you have that opportunity to be able to have them type the code, but not get to check it. And that kind of gets them used to not being able to check their stuff. Now, if you go back here and you see that there is also a runnable one. If you go to the runnable one, you're going to notice over here that you've got a tester that you can run, and you've got the simulation. And if you check hop distance this time, look, hop distance actually shows the implementation of it. And so this is a runnable. We can run the code. We can run it once we get our data in here, our code in here. We can run it. We can check and see if it's correct or not. So that's what's the beauty about this, is that you have both of these that you can actually have the kids do, either text only or runnable. Let's go back over here. So that's our AP CSA FRQ Center. You also, let me show you this too while I'm here. You also can assign the practice problems to them. So you can come over here if you want to actually assign this to them and have them do this without just saying, hey, go to the practice problems and do the basics level 1. You can literally assign this to your students, and those 3 dots is how you get to the assigning. When you are over here, it's the same way. You can actually assign using the assign column over here. You can say, okay, I'm going to assign the text only or the runnable, part A, part B, both of them, whatever you want to do. Any questions there that you might have? Make sure you throw those into chat, because I know that's a lot of information on those 2 little resources. Your links are down at the bottom of those. So if you get into these slides later and you're not quite sure where it is, you can go ahead and get to those from these slides also. The next resource is that we actually have a CSA review course. And this review course is just additional material that basically goes through every section that was on the actual course, but it shortens everything. There's past quizzes from each. There's additional multiple choices, and there's additional short practice problems. So when you add this to your list of courses, when you open this review course up, you're going to see it looks like there's a lot of stuff. Like there are a lot of units, because every unit that's covered is actually covered in this review unit also. But if you start opening any of them up, you're going to notice that it's actually pretty small. It has just basically a quiz, unit quiz, and a programming practice for each. quiz, unit quiz, programming practice. So it's a shorter version to be able to help. You could just have the students do this if they're having problems on one specific one and it's getting really close to the test. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm like spazzing because I don't know how to do iteration. You can go back to this and say, hey, let's do the iteration from the review, and that will help them to get their confidence built back up. The other thing that happens is, you guys know that the AP-CSA is usually not one of the first tests that's taken in the AP schedule. And so they get pulled out for a lot of different tests. And those few days that you feel like you really need to focus on getting them ready for the test, some of them aren't even in there. And so this is a good thing to use during that time period also. So that is your AP review test. If you go down to the bottom, you'll also see that there are two complete AP practice tests, exam 1 and exam 2. There are full 40 questions. So if you want to simulate what it's going to be like on the for their actual exam, you could put a time limit on this. So we have made that so it is 40 minutes long, and the students get an hour and a half to be able to take that on the AP exam. So that would be one way that you could kind of help simulate that time constraint also, because those exams are available to you. Other resources that are out there, the College Board has the AP Classroom. If you haven't, as a teacher, gotten connected with that, make sure that you do that, because they do have a lot of resources on the AP Classroom that you can use. There's Course Hub, AP Practice, AP Daily, past FRQs, and the sample scoring. But what's awesome is those are part of the CodeHS platform too, all those past FRQs. So you already have access to those in one place. Also, the message groups are awesome too. If you are not a part of the AP community or have not joined the Facebook AP-CSA teachers or the CodeHS educators Facebook group, those groups really are active. I get a lot of information, a lot of great questions, a lot of good sharing of material on those. So I would really highly recommend you guys add yourselves to and join those Facebook groups and the AP community. And then lastly, for our resources here that we've added to these slides, and again, I'm not going to go to each one of these for the time basis here, but what I would like is to make sure that you know that these are available for you, and you can go to the slides and visit each one of these. We have the CodeHS virtual events. And so what that is it's going to give you a list of all the events that are available to you. And so that if you need some help, professional development, you can go to those. Those are awesome. The CodeHS week 0, that just gives you an idea of that very first week. When we come in that very first week, you guys know what it's like. It would be great if all of the students who are going to be in our class are actually in our class the first day, or even 2 days, or even 3 days. A lot of times that doesn't happen. You get kids trickling in, and then finally 4 or 5 days into it, you're like, okay, now I know who is actually in my class. So this week 0 just gives you some ideas of some different things that you can actually do that first week that's productive. It helps springboard the kids into the session. But it also is not if they're not in with this, they're going to be totally lost, because Unit 1 is going to start the kids where they need to be on Unit 1. There's also the CodeHS knowledge base. We, even as employees, use this knowledge base all the time. It answers so many questions. So if you ever have a question, this help.codehs.com is really your first go-to place, and see if you can find it there before you start contacting. It actually is faster, because you might be able to get your question answered on the spot by going to the knowledge base. We also have some new and upcoming webinars. So if you want to check out the schedule to be able to get into those webinars, I know that most schools have money for professional development, and sometimes we just kind of choose things to get away. These are not ones that it's just to get away. I think that you're going to find these are super helpful when you can go to any of these virtual events or see the webinars. Like I said before, the Facebook group is a great group to make sure that you get plugged into. There's also a CodeHS teacher forum on the CodeHS platform. That's on forum.codehs.com. That's very active. There's a lot of things that are being shared there. So I encourage you to get onto the forum and see what's going on there. Pair programming guide. This is just an additional resource. Pair programming, we always, very rarely does anyone program individually out in the real world. There's a lot of collaboration that goes on. And there's a specific way that best practices have shown that pair programming actually really helps. And this guide will help to say, okay, how do we do this with CodeHS? How can we actually do the pair programming and having a driver and a navigator and what they're supposed to be doing when they're in those roles. And then we also have the CodeHS peer review resources. I would encourage you to go check those out. Those are going to be very helpful to you also. So if you have any questions about these additional resources, make sure you throw those into the parking lot if you haven't done so yet. And I will go to the parking lot and start looking at those while Julia takes over and goes through some teacher tools with you guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joni. And I know we just saw so many links, so many awesome resources that you all want to check out. Reminder, you're going to get these slides, a link to that with the recording at the end of our session today. That email will be sent out by the end of today. So you will be able to check all those out for yourself. All right. So we are going to hop over to looking at some general tools on CodeHS. So we took a look at the CSA content and curriculum. We took a look at CSA specific resources available both on CodeHS and on other platforms like College Board. And now we're going to take a look at those tools. And I saw a lot of people asking in the parking lot about free versus pro tools and what's available to you and how is this going to help you teach your class. I saw at the beginning of our session, a lot of you are new to CodeHS. So I'm going to go over a lot of these tools that are available for you regardless of what class you teach. So if you teach one class of, one section of CSA, but then you also teach some other courses, all of these tools are going to apply to any of those courses that you teach on CodeHS. And I am going to show a lot of these kind of quickly because there's so much and I want you to know that what you are looking for is available here. If there is something that I go through and it's too fast and you want more information, go right over to that parking lot and ask for more info. We have so many help docs and articles that will give you a lot of step-by-step information with videos or images to help you navigate through all of those. So if you are brand new to CodeHS, hopefully this will just show you all that we have and it won't overwhelm you because there is a lot and there's a lot that you can do on here. And as a company, we keep adding those new features. Like Collaborate was not here a year ago. That's a brand new feature that teachers asked for. And we said, okay, this is something teachers need. We want to, make this available to them. So new features are being added all the time as well. And I will show you at the end of this how you can ask for those new features also. All right, so this is a time where you can totally just watch. If you would like to try and see where you can find these tools on your own site, on your own account, you can do that as well. But I'm going to just be clicking. You can see I have lots of tabs here that we're going to go through. So on the main page, when you log into CodeHS, you're going to see your sections and you'll see the school year. One thing that is important to note is the difference between a course and a section. So the course is the actual content of the curriculum. So like our CSA would be the course and it would have all those activities. That's what we went through earlier. But you can make multiple sections of a course. So if you teach 3 different sections of CSA, you can have, period 1, period 3, period 4. And all of those sections can be linked to that same course. So here is my demo course. And once I click into my demo section, I will see a list of all of my students, and I'll have a lot of different options here, things that I can access. So I am going to show just a few options on this main page. One is announcements. So this is a helpful feature. If you click on announcements in a section, it will open a page where you can announce something to your entire section. So you want to remind them about homework. You want to let them know that you're going to be absent and they need to work on this assignment. you can make sure that they get that information as soon as they log into CodeHS. It will pop up for them. So this is a really helpful way to communicate with the whole group. You also can communicate student by student by using this little conversation button. So if I wanted to talk to Isabella and just check in with her because she was absent yesterday, I can click on conversation and it will bring me to a section where I can have a chat with her. And it will be totally separate from the actual course. This is just a way for me to check in with her and talk to her in a general way. The last thing on here that is really an awesome feature is this attendance feature. So if you click on attendance, you'll see a list of your students. You will also get the time that they first logged in, when they were most recently on CodeHS, and how long they have spent on CodeHS. And you can click into weekly attendance, which will show for the entire week what days they logged in. So right now, summer, no one's logging in. So, but during the school year, you can see, you know, Isabella was in on Monday, but not on Tuesday. So maybe you want to check in with her that way. All right, now we're going to hop over to some ways that you can control what your students see and when. So if you go over to course settings, there's a lot of different options, but the one that I want to focus on today is due date and access controls. If we click into due date and access controls, you will get a page where you'll see all of the modules in the course. You can also expand to see all of the lessons in the module and all the activities in the lesson. So you have control all the way down to each individual activity on when your students see that assignment, when it's due, and how they will access it. So for example, if I am starting my class and I don't want to teach students this first module. Maybe some students are coming in with some background of programming. I don't need to start with this first module. I can unassign that module and those students will never even see it in their list. So this is a nice way for you to control what is actually in that course. And we have other ways of doing this as well, but I just want you to know that assigned means students either see it or they don't. They don't even know that it's there. This is a little bit different from access controls. So access controls, if it's set to available, that means students see it in their course, and they also can click in and start working on it. But say that I want to make this first module available, but I don't want them working on the next one yet. I don't want them to work too far ahead. So I can lock this module. So they'll see that this module exists, but they won't be able to click into it. It will have a little padlock and it will be, they'll not be able to click into that link. I can then come in and say, okay, now we're all ready to go back and change it to available myself. Or I could just say, I know I want to start this module on October 1st. So I can schedule when that module is going to open and when it's going to close. You have the option. So maybe I want to say, I want everyone to work on JavaScript and graphics and be done in 2 weeks. So I'll open it on October 1st and 2 weeks later, I'm going to close it. So you won't be able to access that after that date. Another way of letting your students know when something is due is just setting a due date for either, again, the module, lesson, or activity. So you have lots of control here. There's also a really great way in this to differentiate for your students. So if you see here, we have a list of all the students in the class. So if I want to click in and see, maybe most students, I don't want them to work on programming with Carol, but Noah is coming in and he doesn't have as much background in CS as other students. So I'm going to go in to just Noah's settings. And now I can say, I'm actually going to assign this for him, right? So it may be unassigned for a different student. For most of my other students, maybe I'm just going to assign it for him. There are also some other options. Some of our courses, not this course, includes block options. So that's if you were teaching lower level computer science courses, that's an option here. And preventing copy and paste. I saw some questions in the parking lot about cheating. And so this is one way that you have, one tool that we have, so that you can't have a student find an answer somewhere and copy it and just put it in and have it be done. They would have to type it in, which yes, they could still do that, but there are other ways, other tools as well for us to try to eliminate or prevent cheating in our classroom. So there's a link in the parking lot. Someone asked a question about it. There's a link right there that you can take a look at if you're interested in those tools. All right. Then we're going to go back over to our main page, and we're going to take a look at our progress tracker. So you can look at progress for your students by assignment, lesson, or module, and you have some additional options here. But for now, we're just going to look at progress by assignment. So when I open this, you'll see a full list of all your students, all of the assignments, and you can narrow this down to a certain module, order it differently, however you want. But you'll see all these colors, and you might not know, if you haven't used CodeHS before, what these colors mean. So if you hover over the key, it will tell you what each color means. And this is a way of tracking how your students are progressing through the course. A lot of teachers teach CodeHS in a somewhat self-paced way. Either they have their students just work through the whole content self-paced. Sometimes they'll have certain check marks throughout the year, but this is a nice way to see how your students are progressing. You can see Isabella has been completing all of the assignments and is now, maybe she skipped this one. Why did she skip it? She didn't finish this, so I can go back and check in with her on those specific assignments. This is a really good way of getting an overview of how your class is working through the content. We also have our grade book, which you can access up here. And a lot of these are also accessible on the left-hand side. So gradebook here will bring you there as well. And this will have the actual grade for each assignment. The colors, the color coding is going to be the same. So once you learn that key, it will be the same for all of these pages. A really helpful thing here is you'll see that by default, all of the activities in a course are going to go into the gradebook, regardless of what type they are. But you'll see here, this is the first video. It's worth 10 points. So if a student watches the video, they get 10 points. You may not want to give students 10 points just for watching the video. So if you click on configure, you'll see you have options here of which items you want to include in your gradebook. You have a bunch of other ways that you can set this gradebook up for you so that it is working the way that you want. And one really cool thing here, oh, this happened to me the other day. As soon as I click configure, let's see if it comes back. I think there's something with my demo section, but so you can grade student assignments right through the gradebook by clicking on the actual link for the assignment. And let's see, because I opened it earlier, maybe we're going to be good. So I clicked into our short stack assignment, and here is all my students. It shows me right here how long they spent on it. It shows me if they've submitted or not. I can enter a score right here. I can go into fast grade from here, which is a pro feature. And I see some things in the chat. I'm going to show you a really, really easy way for knowing what's pro and what's free in just a second. But we have lots of options here. You can give full credit to all the students at once. If you just wanted to make sure students did this assignment, that's a way to have a quick way of grading right there. And this time spent is really helpful to know what students are struggling. It might also show you which students may be cheating on a certain assignment, right? You can look at the average time for completion and see, did one student, did the total time, was it 5 seconds where they just found an answer, copied it, pasted it, and they were done? That's a good indication that they might have found an answer somewhere else. All right. And so this is our review. This is how you can actually grade assignments. So I said before, fast grade is a pro feature, but grade mode is a free feature. So you can always go in and grade your students' assignments using grade mode. There is also help mode here, which is a little bit different. These are all the students who actually were working on their assignments, and then they got to a point where they said, I need help. So they typed into the conversations, can you help me? So I think that if I try to open these, we're not going to get full information here. But here, this is a really easy way for you to see right away what students are asking for help and give them the info that they need right away. You can then see at the bottom, these are all the students who have submitted work, and you can go into grade mode to grade them, grade all of these assignments here. All right, we also have lots of resources. So you can get there right over here from the resources tab here. And you'll see we have handouts, problem guides, lesson plans. We have the syllabus here, resources for the first week that Joni was talking about a little bit earlier. We have solution references, and solutions are always free on CodeHS because we know you need to know what the answer is. We have some offline assessments, so midterms and finals are there. Lots of different things for you to take a look at here. So I encourage you to look through those lesson plans. Lesson plans, handouts, problem guides are available on the pro version, but if you are on free, you get all of those resources for the first 5 lessons. So you'll be able to go in and see the first 5 lesson plans for that course, and you might be able to then just use that as a template for the rest of your lessons as you go through the rest of the course. So that's something that a lot of people do when they aren't on the pro version. All right, so I told you I'm going to show you this really cool feature of how you know what's free, what's pro, what you have access to. So if you click more here, yeah, okay. If we click more, not on our resources, we have to be on our page where we have this. We can get there from our demo section as well. If we click more, you'll see all tools, and it says advanced because the table might look a little bit scary. There's a lot of information, but I think this is so helpful that I want you to take a look. So all tools, if we click on that, you'll see a list of all the tools that we have on CodeHS, what type of tool they are, what it does, the status of it, which means, is it a live tool? Is it a tool that we are beta-ing, or did we just start trying to make this tool happen? That would be an alpha tool. You can also see the plan that this tool is on. So you'll see there are quite a bit of tools that are pro, but there are so many tools that are available on the free version as well. So these are all things you can take a look at and access. You'll also see your access here will tell you if your plan allows you to have access to that resource. And this is one of the things that I love the best is right here for every tool. If you're like, I really want more information about this sandbox, I don't know what this is, but it sounds cool. You can go right to the help article or to a video demo to get more info for that tool and how to use it. So this is a really helpful page for you to be able to see what we have, what are the options, and then make the choices for how you are going to run your class on CodeHS. All right, and the last thing I want to show you is the course catalog. So you are right now in our workshop for the APCSA course, but you may be also teaching other courses. You may be interested in what other content we have. So if you go up to my courses at the top, you'll see a view course catalog dropdown. And once you click view course catalog, you'll see a list of all of the courses that we have on CodeHS. And there are a lot, and it's constantly growing. So you can filter for middle or high school. You could search specifically for a course. So we can see that we have Computer Science A, here's our AP Computer Science Labs. So you can find a lot of that. You'll also see here, there's some state courses. So we have a lot of courses that are specific for states that match with the standards that states have set for computer science. You can also search by language, and you can see here we have our coming soon section. These are all the courses that are brand new, launching at the end of the month. So these are brand new courses that we have just been developing this year, and they are coming out, and you'll be able to enroll your students in those by the end of the month once they're released. But any of these courses right from this page, you can learn more about that course, look at the units, the syllabus, or add it to your list of courses right there. All right, so that was a lot. Hopefully it looks like I got a lot of people were asking questions, but I see a lot of answers in there as well. If you asked a question in the chat and you didn't get an answer, make sure you put it in that parking lot so that we can make sure we get you an answer to that question. And we talked about so many resources. I do remember Joni talking about our some of these other resources. So I wanted to give you these direct links right here. So we have a CodeHS certified educator program. If you've been teaching with CodeHS for a little while and you want to get more information on how you can join that program or apply, ask for more info in the parking lot and we'll make sure that we get you that resource. We also have a really active CodeHS educators Facebook group. So this is an awesome way for you to chat with teachers who are in similar scenarios to you, other people who are teaching the same courses. I saw a lot of people asking in the chat, you know, has anyone seen this happen in their classroom, or how do you do this in your classroom? This is a great way for you to communicate with other teachers using CodeHS resources. We also have a bunch of other free workshops that we're going to be leading for the rest of the summer. If you go to that link here, info/pd/free, you'll see a whole list where you can sign up for those. We still have our APCSP one coming up. So if you are also teaching that and you would like to attend that, that's going to be coming up next week. And we have also a new CodeHS teacher webinar that goes over a lot of those tools in more depth and starts from the beginning. So if you are someone who is totally brand new to CodeHS and you want to know, well, how do I just get started? I got so much info, I'm just not sure where to start. That's a really, really awesome workshop for you to attend. All right, and we have a survey that would be awesome if you could fill out. So if we could get that link into the chat, that would be really helpful. We want to know if we were able to hit your goals today. You came here looking for something. We want to make sure that we are able to give you what you're looking for. So any feedback is really, really helpful for us. And we look through that right after our session to make sure that the next time we put this on, we are making sure that it is totally worth your while and answering all of the questions that you have. All right. And the last thing, if you are looking for a certificate for attending our session today, you can go right to codehs.com/CSA certificate. And this is a quick Google form. It will just ask for your name and your email, and we will send out those certificates to you by tomorrow. Just make sure you double check your email, because if you have a typo in there, it will never come to you. So just double check that in that Google form to get your certificate for today. All right, and do we have any last questions? That parking lot is going to stay up and running, so you can go back and refer to that. Your workbook document, which has a lot of good resources there, is going to be available as well. So you will see a lot of these resources that you can check. So the survey, you can just put wherever. Sorry, Amanda. Thank you. That's good feedback that we need to include other as an option. All right, so I can double check in the survey and make sure that our session today is listed there. So if it's not, just give me a second to do that, and that link will stay open. All right, so thank you everyone so much for joining us. We hope to see you at another workshop, and reminder that the recording and the resources are all going to be sent out to you before the end of the day today, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you everyone, have a great day.